Welcome back to the Where You're Planted podcast. I'm your host, Molly McManamy. So happy to be back. First of all, thank you for the support on the first couple episodes. It's been a joy doing this so far, so I'm so happy that people are enjoying it. I am sure you're going to absolutely love this episode today as well. Before we get started, I do need to thank today's sponsor. It is the Apocalyptic Artists Ensemble. They are a ensemble that was formed in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic in response to arts programming being cut because of funding and COVID shutting down schools. The ensemble is comprised of multidisciplined theater artists committed to shaping the future of classical theater and making it accessible for all. They invite artists and audience members to carry on a tradition of theatrical storytelling through bold adaptations, the inclusion of artists with diverse identities, experiences, and heritage, and empowering programs for young artists. They have had a lot of success, reaching over 1,000 NYC middle school and high school students over the last 2 years, and producing 2 feature film adaptations of Shakespeare's plays. Their latest film, Julius Caesar, is available for free, streaming on YouTube right now, courtesy of Jackalope Studios. I will include a link to their YouTube channel in the show notes, and please consider keeping up with them, whether you can donate financially or just keep up with the stuff that they're doing. It is really great, and the arts are so important, especially right now, to keep in the schools. So thank you to the Apocalyptic Artists Ensemble for sponsoring today.
You did so good.
That was really good.
That was impressive.
I guess I have to introduce my guest now. That was hard to say. I was a little bit worried I was going to screw up that word, but I did it. So the rest of the episode's going to be great now.
Easy peasy. Here we go.
So my guests today are pretty well known in our community.
Whoa.
They're
the pressure.
Yeah.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah. In my community, they are both in the fitness community here in Vegas, and just like I think that we have such a healthy Christian community here, I think our fitness community is awesome. It's actually where I first felt at home here in Las Vegas. And the first guest that I'll introduce, I met her in 2019 at a gym, actually. We were both training to be fitness instructors, which is so crazy to look back at now. I'll let her kind of tell her story, but that is where we first met. And from there, her fitness career, I guess I could call it, has just absolutely blown up, taken off. So I will introduce you to Samantha Campbell first.
Oh, I get to go first. That's kind of special. Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy.
This has been you've been talking about this for a minute. So this is very cool.
It's really,
and I feel very blessed and lucky to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
That introduction though, now I'm nervous.
So just tell us kind of, I said you started to train to be an instructor in 2019.
I did, yeah.
And that was spin. So that was kind of my first love, your first love in fitness.
Yep.
And so you can just talk about what first brought you to want to be an instructor, and then kind of what happened from that point on.
The real story.
Yeah. The Cliff Notes version. You can keep.
Yeah. How long we got? No, just kidding. I'm a talker. So why did I want to become an instructor? I think working out was always my therapy. So for me, I taught elementary school. My mom and I would go at 5 a.m. together. We'd call it our happy hour. My mom would not really work out. We'd just kind of hang and I'd work out next to her. But, and I had talked about doing it then and kind of went on the back burner. And then my now business partner, Julie, was a spin instructor. And I lived over in Green Valley, which is a solid, I'd say 30 minutes with traffic from where I'm at now over in Summerlin. So I would drive before work, after work, to go to this particular spin class. And when we were training, I was like, look, don't like it. We need to go. I need you to come with me. Try this instructor. You'll just get it. You'll feel it. You'll understand. So we go to a class, and right after you signed up that day, I think.
Yeah.
And I looked at you and I was like, I'm home.
Yeah.
This is what it's meant to be. There was no drama. There was none of that. Right. So I actually did the spin, I guess, instruction that they had there. It's a hot Pilates studio, so it was mixed with that as well. And I became a spin instructor there, and it was the best thing that I had done for myself. Mm-hmm. Again, it was kind of my outlet. It was kind of my time to just be me and be on that bike and be obnoxious and say obnoxious things and, just make people happy, because to me, that's all I love to do. Like, if you're smiling, if you're happy, I'm good. So fast forward, and I ended up actually getting fired from that studio due to an ex-boyfriend. So with that, he got into a fight with one of the other trainers there. And as a, I'm sorry I got you fired, he ended up purchasing a studio here in town called 103 Hot Pilates and Yoga in January of 2020. And again, it was like I'm sorry, but I want to do this. No, he didn't. So he bought it in January 2020 with Julie, and COVID hit. So they bought it January 2020, March 17th, they closed. And he's a well-known businessman here in town, so he had other things going on where this was just Julie. And I would do their videos with them during COVID to like upload and all these things. And at this time, I'm no longer teaching. I'm just doing weddings. And COVID hit me just as hard with weddings, right? So people aren't getting married. People like, I didn't know what I was going to do. It was like a really dark time. And I was so thankful at that time for you, as well as some other, girlfriends that we had, because we were all in the same boat. We were figuring out what we were going to do. And I'll never forget, I was doing a video with Julie, and I had broken up with that boyfriend at this time that we were doing this video, and he walked out of doing the video with us, and I looked at Julie and I was like, would you be okay if like I talked to him about buying him out? And she like looked
Boss
up and
move.
she looked at me and goes, what? And I was like, I really don't know how I'm gonna do this, but like, I was like, it just kind of came to me like while we were working out, like, would you be okay? She's like, honestly, yes. Like, I don't know if we'll reopen the doors. Like, I don't know. So I was, even before actually I talked to my parents, I brought it up to my ex-boyfriend that day. And I said, hey, like, if I wanted to do this, would this be something that you would be okay with? And he was like, yeah, it's not my passion. It's not what I want. Like, it's yours for a price. And, not like the ex-girlfriend discount. And so then after that, I did go to my parents because I had not a pot to piss in. And they gave me a loan. And I'll never forget, I picked up my mom to go to a birthday party, and we're sitting in the Costco parking lot because I was in Summerlin. She was in Green Valley, and we met halfway on St. Rose. And I brought it up to my mom. I was like, I think I want to do this. And she was like, okay, let's FaceTime your dad, because my dad lives part-time here and out of state. So I FaceTime my dad, like freaking out, because you guys don't know my relationship with my father, but it's comical. Like, he never takes me seriously. Now he does, but we've just always had that relationship. So I told him my idea, and he was like, I don't hate this. And I was like, wait, what? I was expecting him to be like, no, we're not doing this. No, there's no way. And so then I went back the next day and I said, okay, this is what we can give. This is what we can do. And it didn't go over well at first because, it needed to be a different price, this, that, the other. And we had met at my favorite little restaurant, Cafe Lola, where I do all of my meetings with my ex-boyfriend and my dad. And my dad's like, let me handle this before he shows up. I'm like, oh God. He walks in the door, and dad's like, this is what we're going to give. And my ex looks at me and goes, no, like, I'm not going to go down on my price. My dad literally stood up and said, okay, thanks for meeting us, and walked out. And I'm just sitting there and I just start crying because I'm like, you didn't want this. This isn't your thing. Like, I just had this feeling like it was meant to be. Like, I just saw the potential. I saw the community, and I just wanted it so badly. And we left, and he still had said no at that time.
I remember that phone call.
And
you were devastated.
Bawled my eyes out. My dad had already gone to the studio because Julie was teaching a class, and told her, like, no, it's not going to happen. And I was like, why are you doing that as she's teaching a fucking class? Oh, sorry, freaking class. And so then about 10 minutes later, my phone rings, and it's my ex-boyfriend. And I pick up, and I'm like, business SJ, like, you don't cry now. And he's like, it's yours. And I was like, what? And he's like, it's yours. It's what the price you want, it's yours. And I was like, wait, you're serious? And he's like, yep, it's meant to be. Go for it. So that was about July 1st. And by July 7th, It was mine with Julie. And it has been the most rewarding thing in the entire world. I'm going to get emotional because the community there, I also have another business, and like I wasn't there this weekend and I was there this morning, and the amount of like, how was your wedding? How's that? Like everybody knows everybody. Everybody, you walk in the door and I don't care if you're big, small, different ethnicities. Like everybody's welcome. Like I hug you, I give you a kiss on the cheek. Sorry, I know there's COVID and monkeypox. I don't care. Like I'm just like, to me, we joke, like we have a bar that we go to that it's like our cheers bar. Like I want our gym to be the cheers gym. Like everybody knows your name. Like it's a thing. Like if you're a member there, the other instructors like call your name out during class. Like it's so interesting too to see how many people, will go out now together for happy hours and dinners. And it's just been like such a rewarding experience. And I mean, it's yoga and hot Pilates. I know nothing about yoga, right? Yeah. So even when we took over, I was like, namaste. Like we were so thankful for like the yoga instructors that stuck with us. And there was very few, honestly. And now, we've built a third room. We have 36 instructors. We have, classes starting at 6 a.m., anywhere from 16 to 20 classes a day. And they're busy. And it's just, like I said, it started as like, I just was a spin instructor. And then, would I go through that ex relationship again if I knew it would get me here? 100%. Yeah. Was it shitty during it? Yeah. But like to see where we're at now. And I mean, you had lived in Green Valley, and my friends who supported us and would drive across at 8 a.m. traffic, which no, thank you. And even some of my friends now, I went over to their house the other night and I was like, I will never complain when you call me and ask me to put your weights down, your towel down, like whatever, like you drive 40 minutes for 45-minute class. And they're like, yeah, it's what we do, So to be able to see it and continue to build, hopefully, it's been such an amazing experience. And I'm so thankful to my parents. And I tell them that all the time because they're paid back now. But like it was
low-key flex.
Low-key, right? So it was, I couldn't have done it without them because again, it was COVID. I had nothing.
Yeah.
And we were even laughing on the way here. Like I drove my dad's minivan that had like a dent in it.
When I met Samantha, she was driving
a Dodge, no, Town and Country.
You and I both didn't have two pennies to rub together back then, which has been very rewarding. Yeah. And I can attest to everything. And there's so many lessons in there that we will unpack because it's been cool to see this journey, but it's really aligned with like your spiritual journey.
100%.
And so it's the main reason I wanted to have you on, because it's just kind of been like a physical symbol and like a way to see it out in real life. But I think there's been stuff happening within you too that has also been going along with the growth that people see. I don't think they know about the other stuff. So I'm excited.
We'll get back to that. I'm sweating already. Awesome.
Great job.
Thank you, Ryan.
Poor Ryan has been sitting there.
I'm like, did I show up on the wrong podcast?
I was like, gosh, you guys know I'm a talker.
No, that's all important because it really is important to know all the background to this. So Ryan is our other guest today, Ryan Benavente.
Yes.
I'm privileged to be in a small group with him. So it's kind of opposite. I wanted to have them both on because with Samantha, like I said, I met her through fitness. And since then, we have like now a Sunday routine where we go to church together. And I'll touch on kind of how that all came about. But Ryan was someone who I met through the church and has just been a really a staple in my spiritual life here in Vegas, where he's just one of the constant people that keeps my life consistent. And he's one of the friends that I talk about often on social media and stuff that I just feel so blessed to have in my circle because, we talk about I've already talked about our group on here because I've had other people on, but we really just are blessed to have the group of people that we do life with. But I also like this side of things where I get to know you guys as more than just the people that I see at church on Sunday. That's really the cool part of the group for me. So, Ryan, what has your fitness career journey been?
Well, first, thanks for having me on your podcast. I first want to say that Molly's not only an incredible friend, but she's a world-class leader.
Amen.
Thank you.
And it's hard to find both of those. Yeah. And so you're lucky if you find that in a person. And so I'm just privileged to be here. And so you asked me what my story is. It's not as long as SJ's over here, or it could be as long as that, but I'll save us for them another time later. But really my story with getting into being a trainer and getting into the fitness industry kind of happened by accident. Honestly, I grew up playing competitive soccer since I was 4 years old. And so I played for 20 years. And so I dedicated my entire life to one thing, which was to be a professional soccer player. And I thought that was going to be the cards for me. I'm going to make it. Some people say they're good enough to make it, but they really weren't good enough to make it. I was actually good enough to make it, but there was a lot of things that happened that let me know that God wasn't actually going to allow this to happen, that other things needed to take place. And I'll get more into that later probably in the questions. But so really, after I was done playing competitive soccer, I played all the way through high school, college. I was really battling with this identity issue. And so for me, ever since I was young, I struggled with not only being comfortable in my own skin, but being okay with saying, like, if there is a God, did he make me this way? Because I would look at my skin and I would look at people around me and I'd say, like, they just look like they have such a happier life than I did. And so early on, actually, when I was in high school, I had someone say to me, I'm not going to mention her name, but she literally said to me, she says, you look like you're just so skinny. Like, you need to, like, eat more. And I would go to family barbecues, and I come from an Islander family, and they always would say, like, boy, you need to eat more. Like, feed him, right? And so pretty funny because I played soccer.
My family never said that to me.
Mine was the opposite.
Yeah. And so I was the only, like, guy in my family that played soccer. Everybody played either, football or anything like that. And so early on, I battled with the identity. And so to kind of cope with it, I would say I started to get into the gym. It started roughly with just me and my dad working out in the garage. And really from there, it was just literally learning the basics, the foundations of strength training and movements. And honestly, I wasn't consistent enough to see any results. That's a word for somebody. You got to be consistent enough to see results, okay? And whatever you're doing, right?
Write that down.
But honestly, so from there, I remember telling my dad, it was entering into my junior year of high school. I said, I want to get a gym membership. And so I got a gym membership, and I would literally get up before school would start at 6:30, 7 a.m. in the morning. And I'd get to the gym at 5 a.m. at LVAC. And so that's kind of where my fitness journey begins is I would go to LVAC, and they didn't think I was actually going to show up. But literally I would go every single day before school, and then after school, I would go again before soccer practice, and then competitive soccer practice. And this was my routine. And so when soccer was over, I really had no other thing to fall back on. I'm like, what am I good at? And I was like, well, I really fell in love with fitness. And so I started training around 19. And so this was 9 years ago, where I just started to say, hey, I'll train you, or I'll help you out here and there. And I just started to figure out, like, I was kind of good at this. And so from there, from LVAC, that's kind of where I began. And I started at the bottom of the barrel. I was wiping dumbbells, wiping mirrors in between. I was one of those coaches that you see if you watch, if you see LVAC trainers in Vegas now, the coach, that was me. And so I would do that from probably for a whole year before I really started to say, okay, I want to get more serious about this. And that kind of transitions me into where I reached out to a mentor and Phase One Sports. They actually were here in the Valley. And so I used to train with them in high school as an athlete. And now here I am reaching out to them to be a trainer. And so fast forward from LVAC, I was at Phase One, started off just kind of learning the ropes. And I realized that I had a lot more to learn. Kind of what you were saying, like, you're not really sure if you're good at this.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I thought I knew enough, but a lot of people don't understand that just because you know how to work out doesn't mean you know how to train somebody.
Absolutely.
So different.
It's so different, right? You have to understand that.
Yeah.
And so from Phase One Sports all the way up until recent, I actually was with them for almost 7-8 years.
Wow.
And so I was with LVAC for a quick season, and then transition into being in performance gym, and then now I'm running as an independent trainer. So I've been an independent trainer and running my own business for 5.5, 6 years now. And
that's
so
awesome.
That's kind of like a quick recap of my story.
Yeah.
Love that.
A common theme that I sense from both of your stories is it initially kind of started out as something that you wanted to prove people wrong. So it was, someone told you were too small, and for you, it was like, I can do this on my own without a man. And at the time, I know that a lot of people saw your relationship, and there was a lot of judgment
Yeah.
because of who he was and everything. And so it was really like a mic drop move to to buy him out and be like, no, like I really love this. But I just seeing both of you evolve and grow, I think like this is a saying that I try to keep in the back of my head is it's not about proving anyone wrong, it's about proving God right. And so once you transition into that and you stop getting out of kind of defensive mode, and it stops being about the haters and the deniers, and it starts being about your like kingdom work and building something that benefits the kingdom, then things start to become more fruitful, and you start to see more success. And that's how my career was, at least. Once it stopped being about me and my ego, then all of a sudden I was getting the draft picks and stuff. And it's just funny how that works. But do you guys feel that? And like, do you feel more at peace? Is what I'm sensing correct, that you're at a point now where you're doing this you've moved past that idea that you have to prove these people wrong?
100%. Yes. For me, at least. I think now more than ever, I'm just enjoying it and, soaking it all in. Because I think, and you can attest to this too, fitness is a fad. People get sick of things. People want new things, so there's a honeymoon phase. Have we been in that honeymoon phase? Maybe. Do I want to continue it? Yes, if that's what this is, right? Because you never know. There's always going to be that new trainer, or that new gym, or that new something. That's why you have to keep it fresh and new and wanting people to come in. So for me, it was, once I did it, it was more so like, okay, now like be in the moment. And I think, we go to church now more than I have in a very long time. But that didn't mean I didn't grow up religious, right? Like I was very religious, sang in the choir. My brothers were altar boys. You didn't cross your legs in church, all of the things. And I'm still on that journey, and I'm very open about that. There's things that I don't agree with in the church, and that's okay. But like my mom has always said too, the church is like a buffet. You pick what you want, and you're never going to eat it all. You're never going to agree with it all. But you take what you can from it and what you will take from it, right? So that's something that I keep in the back of my head, especially when it comes to church. Like, we go to a couple different ones sometimes, which I love too, because it's just different. And it's not where I grew up and it was the same service every week. You said, Lord, have mercy 3 times after everything. Like, it was very much like, it was rough, but I am so thankful for you and some other people in my life who have opened my eyes to so much more when it comes to church. And, I think seeing how lucky we've been, I want to give back, and I want to thank God, or, whatever it might be. Yeah. Because I wouldn't be here without it. So
no, that was one of the reasons it was important for me to have you on, because, I think people, of course, this podcast being a Christian podcast, like they think everyone has it all figured out. And like, we're all kind of like, me and Ryan, our small group, we call it The Hill. And we just kind of came up with that recently, because
The Hill.
When we got back together after summer, instead of doing like a study, Ryan asked us all, like, where are you guys at? Like, just be honest. Where are you guys at right now?
What's going on?
And I was like feeling really good. So I'm like, I feel great. And then I think it was one of the girls, she said, like, you're like higher on the hill than me right now, and I'm down at the bottom, kind of trying to make my way back up. And so we spent this whole time talking about this hill, and then we're like, this is who we are.
I love that though. That's a really good way of looking at it. Because even, there's days where you've seen me at my worst. So like, there's days where you are down on the hill, right?
And
rolling
like down the hill.
Yeah, and like that commercial. That's funny. But and like, that's okay. It's not always going to be you're at the highest, right? And you have to give back and be thankful, and take that time for you though too. Because I've even used church, and I've said that before. Like, it's that 1 hour where
turn your phone off,
and I don't have to, because I'm always on. Always. It's really obnoxious. And I have to get better at that though too. That's also my own fault, because I'm allowing people to have that access to me at all times, right? So it's finding those boundaries, and hopefully, next year on the podcast when I'm back on, I can be like, hey, I have more than an hour break a week.
Maybe you'll be higher on the hill.
Hey,
and maybe you won't, but you always have a home.
That's
there.
it.
There you go.
I think with your question, which was originally to prove people wrong. I would say that was my motive in the beginning.
Right.
My motive in the beginning was, man, I didn't make it as a professional soccer player. That's a whole nother story. That's my entire testimony right there. But that really opened my eyes to recognize that, you know, a lot of the things that I was going after were just my own selfish desires. And it was really to cope with the idea that I was really struggling with a deeper root issue, which was my identity. And so fitness actually became a crutch, not something that was a purpose of mine in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was a crutch to say, like,
That's so good.
I'm going to fall back on fitness because at least if I look good or if I can build this outer image, I can fool people into thinking that I either have this status or I have something more than they have to offer. And so originally it was to prove people wrong. But what I realized was, as I continued to be in it, I used to get upset because I'm like, man, God, this has to just be a temporary stay. Like, I'm just in this season for a little bit, because fitness, a lot of people don't actually think of it as a career, that you're going to go with this for a long time. And so for me, eventually it was like me and God had to have these wrestling conversations.
Yeah.
And I had to ask him, like, is this truly where you've purposed me to be in? Because some people will say, oh, Ryan, you can be in, you know, the pulpit, you can be a pastor, you can do these things. And I think that's encouraging for anybody who could be listening right now to the Where You're Planted podcast, because where you're planted could be just where you're positioned,
right,
just to serve a purpose for whatever it is. And it might not even have to do with you. It might have to do with the people. And so I would say originally it was proving people wrong, but really God proved right in the sense that it was about the people that I was meeting. It was the community, the people that continued to come in. I started to sense like, okay, God, the dots that are connecting, why are you sending these people to me? Why does this person have this story? And it really collided with my own story.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like, you know, I was able to not try to prove anybody wrong anymore, but just embrace the fact that this is where I'm planted and this is where I'm positioned.
Yeah, I think I love what you said about it's where you're positioned. And that is something that we haven't really talked about yet, because yes, this whole podcast is about embracing who you are and like digging your feet in and being there. But at the same time, you have to be okay with walking away if it's time. And that's hard, especially when you have put so much time into it. I have to think about that constantly with my career because I had the same sort of testimony as you, Ryan, where I put so much identity in that. And I've struggled with other identities. And having to let go of those is hard. The human nature is you want accomplishments, you want titles, you want people to respect you. And unfortunately, our society chooses how to treat you based on those titles. But you have to be okay with not getting those worldly responses you want, knowing that the kingdom response is so much more important. And for me, at least, like once I'm aligned with that, I know what that feels like now. Yeah. And I don't want to go back to the ego thing, because your ego's never satisfied, and it will always want you to have another title. It will always want you to make a little bit more money until you really figure out, what does it feel like when I sit down, listen to where God wants me to be. So as important as it is to be where you're planted, it's also important to be okay with walking away at any moment to the next place God takes you. And to your community point, what's crazy about Samantha's story is, and that's again why I wanted to have you on, is I don't even think you knew in the moment like how trustworthy you were being when you took this leap of faith. Because again, like you and I both were broke at this time, and you bought this gym, and to me, I was like, this is crazy, but I signed up.
Yeah, you did.
Unlimited membership. And but what's crazy is it's almost like God brought the church to you. Before you were ready to bring or go back to church, and before you were comfortable, because like you were saying, you're a little bit turned off by some of the things that church offers. And that, I think we all are in some aspects. Right. So I never want to come off as, I'm totally perfect and, confident in everything. I just wrote on Twitter today about how like I've struggled with prayer. I'm not good with prayer, but I'm working on it. But it was almost like God was like, I'm going to bring people to you. You're going to like, church is not just church. It's where two or more people gather. Right. Yeah. So you created this community where people felt the things that I think a lot of people don't feel at church, which is safe, inclusive, powerful, secure, confident, all these things that a lot of unhealthy churches could not make you feel. But what was funny is slowly but surely, everyone from our church started going.
I know.
And it was cool because I started going to church and seeing people from 103, and I'd go to 103 and see people from church, and everything kind of collided. And then eventually you started going to church because these were your people, and now you felt comfortable. And so it just speaks to, you know, being where you're at and being open to the possibility that maybe your community is what someone's looking for to feel safe. And that gives you the comfort and the ability to move forward in your walk with God, because you see, oh, these people that I work out with every day, they're pretty normal. Like their church might be okay. Maybe I should go check it out.
Yeah, which we've done, which I love.
Yeah, and we've tried a couple different churches now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what jobs like fitness and stuff should be about. You know, everyone wants the physical results, and that's great, but you guys have this unique opportunity to minister to people. Ryan, you in one-on-one situations a lot, and Samantha, you in these group situations, but they're both opportunities to like show people the heart of God and to create that safe place for them.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the biggest thing is realizing that a spiritual journey isn't just the spirit, it's also the physical part of it as well. But training has such a correlation and parallel to your faith journey. There's going to be days where you just don't feel like waking up and praying. And there's days where you don't feel like waking up and going to the gym.
Totally.
But it's what you decide to do when you decide that you're going to go more so for the discipline than the desire. Because sometimes it's not going to be a desire. Right? It's going to be a discipline first. And it's like anybody I train, I tell them, I'm like, listen, it's not going to happen overnight. And I think that's the thing, is that we think that, and maybe this is a misunderstanding that a lot of new believers have, is you go in a relationship with God and you think that all of a sudden everything that you're trying to figure out, you're going to figure out right away.
Yep.
And I really feel like, man, it's so much pressure when you feel like you need to match someone else's race or you need to match someone else's progress. Just because your progress doesn't look like everyone else's doesn't mean you're not making progress. You might have been somebody who strolled in from the club the night before, but you made it to church that day. And maybe the next weekend, someone looks at you and smells you or whatever the case is. And so I think that's the cool thing about the gym, is the church has this outer exterior that makes people feel intimidated because they have to show up a certain way. They have to show up and look like they're making progress like you are. And
or just not show up as themselves.
Yes.
It's like a done up, painted up version of them.
Exactly. And when I train my clients, because I've had a lot of my clients actually have come through my Bible study or have come through and been a part of our fellowship. And in different seasons, right? Some of them have stayed, some of them have left. But one thing I can say for sure is that when they came in for their training session, I know they didn't think that when they signed up, they were going to walk into a Bible study or walk into the church for the first time.
They didn't know who their trainer was.
They don't know. So I always just think about it as there's always an opportunity to meet people where they are. And as a trainer, as a fitness instructor, as a gym owner, you have the ability to set an environment for people that they can feel welcome. And that's the first thing, is people feeling welcome before you get their trust.
Yes.
And so I think that's a huge thing with being fit in the fitness industry.
Well, and Pastor Lee preached at the Crossing a couple weeks ago about how you have to be ready when your story collides with someone else's story for then it to collide with Jesus.
I love Pastor Lee.
He is the best.
He's
coming on the podcast.
I know.
Now he has to.
Now he has to. I was like, dang, I'm going to text him.
He's awesome. And that, I mean, I'm still on fire from that service because it was so good. It was.
I had serious FOMO.
It was
because
so good. You didn't go that day.
I didn't go that day. Yes, I went to a different church, which was great. Don't get me wrong. But then, like, hearing how excited she was, like, she had voice noted, and I was like,
and I needed it that day. Yeah. And my friend asked me to go to a different church, and I was like, something's telling me to go to the Crossing today.
Yeah.
So I went, and Pastor Lee, it actually was the week I was launching this podcast, and he literally talks about your testimony, and I was like, all right, God, I'm forging forward.
Got it.
But he talked about how he golfs with people who don't go to church, who drink the whole time, who, you know, they're not aligned with him in his walk. But he's like, but when they need someone, they're going to turn to me. They know that I'm there. They're comfortable with me. I'm in their space. we can't expect everybody to come to our space. And that's, I think, a problem with a lot of churches is we're waiting for people to walk through the door, but we need to walk through their door and meet them, like Ryan said, where they're at. And the gym is something that a lot of people are going to come back to, because, you know, even if they stop, everyone, you know, has the New Year's resolution and stuff. And for me, I know like when I have a personal trainer as well, who I love, and it's so hard, but I look forward to it because I love our friendship. And I learn from him. And same with going to the gym. It's like, I know that if nothing else, that 5 minutes where the lights are off and I'm laying down like in corpse pose,
giving the speech,
I'm getting a word from Samantha. And it's so important because I've even had my trainer who, because of who he is, would not probably feel welcome in a lot of churches, tell me like, I think I want to go sometime. And it's because you go, and it's because the people that come to the gym he sees are his type of people, and it's not just church people. And it's so important.
I think it is really important because, I mean, on a daily basis, when I tell people that I go to church, some laugh, which whatever. But like the other night, we were at the gym and I had taught a class, and we were standing outside with some friends who are newer friends, and they, the wife looks at me and goes, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I was like, "Of course." She's like, "Is there a church out here that you go to?" And I was like, so honored that she asked me. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. I was like, I really kind of do. I go to multiple, but it was just like that moment where she felt comfortable with me. I felt comfortable with her sharing like, oh, I do, you know? And I think even being in the gym, there's been times where you're in there and like I'm in the office and a member's like crying to me or talking to me. And I love that. Like, I love that they feel comfortable that I can be that person for them, right? And I think that's kind of what church is for me right now. Like, that's my outlet. Like, that's my time to go. I've cried many times.
Well, it's like the gym.
It is. It's your, and it's almost like when I don't go and then I go back, whatever the, you know, sermon is about, it's like, it just hits different where you're like, got it. Like, I know I'm meant to be here. Like, it's just, it always comes back around, you know? And again, I'm still nowhere near perfect when it comes to church, but like knowing that I have that outlet and I have my close friends that I can go with. And I mean, I take my boyfriend's son with me, and like that's my moment with him on Sundays, and then we eat. Like, it's really special to me, and he doesn't have to go. Like, he chooses to go, and that's a big deal for me. So I just love sharing that with him. So I've been very grateful for it.
Yeah. I just love that you're even talking about that. It really just, and that you're excited to tell other people about church.
I was so excited when she asked. I like told people the next day. I was like, she asked what church I went to. Like, I was very, it was a cool thing.
And like you just said, I'm not perfect with church yet, but that's not what people are looking for. They're looking for the person they can relate to.
Right. And nobody's perfect, right? Like, no. It's all a facade, right? Yeah. And I think that's especially in our industry too. And I think, you know, we were always taught leave it at the door. You know, it's not your workout. You're there for the people, and it's true. But there's been moments where I'm going through stuff too, and I'm giving my spiel at the end, and I'm crying because I'm not perfect.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You know, they hold you at this higher, almost like a church. Like you're up here, where it's like we're normal people too. Like we go through normal experiences just like everybody else. We might hold it differently, react differently, all of those things. But there has been multiple times where I'm going through something on my own, and I'm giving that speech at the end with the song, and I can't hold back tears. And I'll never forget, there was one time where a trainer told me, like, you shouldn't have cried. You should have held it in. And I got so mad. Yeah.
And
I turned into Silent Sam, and I was like, no. I go, A, this is my gym, and B, like, I was like, no, but then also like, no, I'm not perfect. Like, everyone always thinks, like, again, fitness people, they hold you at this higher level where it's like, we're just regular people. Like, we all have our stuff. We all go through it.
Is it hard to show up sometimes? Like, knowing that they probably need a little bit of motivation, and you're supposed to be peppy, and you're the person that might be pulling the energy out of them. Is it hard when you know, like, you're going through something and you're asking them to give their all, but you can't even give your all?
Yeah, so like, I would say yes. We probably would both say yes, but being in so many spheres of leadership, right? You said leading Bible study, being a leader as a trainer for your clients, it can take a lot on you. And my wife will say this, I don't wear stress on my face, but it's one of those things that it'll catch up to me. I'll start to feel worn out. And it's one of those things where my leadership is a little bit like I'm doing it in my own strength rather than relying on the strength that God's given me, right? And it's like it becomes more of a burden. I'm showing up and I'm like, man, they are telling me the same story or I have to figure out another way to tell them the same thing. But then I just literally thought of this while we're having the podcast. What if God is our ultimate trainer, right? It's like God, it's like our trainer, how we don't always agree with our trainer. We don't always agree with the exercise selection. We don't always agree with the rep ranges, but they're waiting for us and they have the best blueprint in mind for our results. And if we're willing to trust the process, if we're willing to submit to the authority of our trainer, eventually we can get the results that are there. And what's crazy is I was just thinking, like, in our own faith journey, what if it's just like seasons of going through where God's continuously training us. He's training us with this rep range in this season, because we need to learn something. We need to gain some muscles and some strength in this area of our life for the next training session. And we just continue to show up day after day. Eventually what happens is our body starts to change in the gym. Our spirit will start to change with God. We'll start to maybe we were resisted to certain things, like when you're resisted to certain exercises, whether it's, in the very beginning, you're like, I don't want to do anything that requires a sled. My clients say that.
Burpees.
Yeah, burpees.
That's what she always
I call that rest.
I call that rest.
There's exercises that we just hate. I have them as well. But there's things that we also don't agree with God. And we might not even understand it in this season of our life. But if we submit to it, eventually, if we continue to show up, God's going to continue to train us and sharpen those muscles that maybe we will actually be ready for the next season and next phase.
I just thought of something as you said that. I jokingly tell my trainer when I hate something he makes me do, I befriend it, is what I call. So in my workouts on my own, I'll start doing those things, because I don't want him to have that power over me to where I hate it. And he
you still don't do burpees for me though.
I don't do
burpees are just a terrible exercise.
I'm fundamentally against burpees. Okay,
totally
come out and say that.
I'm teasing.
But like donkey kicks, he used to make me do those.
Oh, now you love those.
And I started doing them and requesting them in your classes and in his classes. And then there was one time he asked me to do them, and I just whipped them out. And he was like, what has gotten into you? And I was like, I've been doing them. Like, I like them now. Like, but I'm thinking about that with your spiritual fitness. It's like the things like prayer I was talking about this morning. I was expressing it because the last few weeks of my life, I have seen prayer. I mean, the stuff that has happened in the last 3 weeks, there's been a lot of hardship, but God has been listening to my prayers. But I finally got comfortable with prayer, and I started getting specific, and I stopped being scared to ask my group to pray for specific things. And now I have my prayer community, and I actually pray when I tell someone I'm going to pray for them. Like, I'm really taking the next steps in this prayer journey. And so I was talking about it this morning and thinking about it now, like with exercise, it's like I befriended it. Now I'm not intimidated by it. And now I see the results from it, and I want to do it. I'm excited to do it. So like I'm excited about my donkey hops, and I'm like, I'm ready to go. That's how I feel now with like prayer and adversity. I'm like, bring it on. Actually, last time I said that on the podcast, something bad happened.
I was just going to say, can we like be specific?
A little adversity, not a lot of adversity.
I'm like, just a little.
But I love that you said that, because now I'm relating that back to my fitness journey. And I joke that I have like my 3 therapies. I have regular therapy, my personal trainer, and then I have Jesus, like my spiritual therapy. But you learn something about the other things within those other areas, and man, you can never get too much like self-help, but I really have learned so much about myself through training. I will endorse, like, you should get a personal trainer, because if you're working out and you've never had one, even if you hire one for one session, you should hire Ryan. But if you don't, someone you need to learn the fundamentals, and you need to start with the basics, because if you don't know that, you will hurt yourself, or you will quit because you're not doing it right. So you're not going to see results. So true. And you can relate that back.
Dang, that's so good. I'm going to relate that back right now.
I just want everyone to know that last week in Bible study, Ryan was able to relate an air fryer.
Oh, no. I did.
You told me this story.
This air fryer message, I forgot it, or else I would share it right now.
Because it was so in the moment. He's like, I got a word for you. And we're like, Oh my God, this guy. Yeah. It's so impressive. But
side note, they've been challenging me every Monday to send
this.
a Monday message.
Yes.
Just to share, because I'll just, I'll read something and I want to encourage other people.
Yeah.
Because this is one of those things where faith is not meant to go at it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus never intended for us to walk alone. And too many people are giving up on their faith because they're just not walking alongside the right people.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody that they're submitted to. You made a great point. Having a trainer, it might take you years to achieve what it could take to achieve if you just were willing to submit to someone else's authority.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned under some incredible mentors and trainers. And I think the biggest thing that I've realized is that I could have learned all that on my own, but it probably would have taken me double the time. And I think the same is true when we walk with our spiritual, fitness journey is in our faith walk, is that a lot of people will just not give anybody room to have authority over them, to help them figure it out. I'm going to encourage somebody. Someone needs to find people that you can learn from, that you can, that can lead you better, that you can submit to under their authority. Not everybody has authority over you.
Yeah.
But you should have, I would say, select one or two people. Jesus had 3 people in his inner circle that were submitted under his authority, that would then go and be the pinnacle people of spreading the gospel and building the church. And I think the same is true, is you need people in your life that you're submitted under, and then you also need to be someone who's an authority over someone else. It's the Great Commission, discipling people constantly.
I love that.
Yeah, that's so good. This is why I wanted you on the podcast.
No. And the way he relates it all back.
I know. This is what our Wednesday nights are like.
But that's what I love. Take it easy. I teach Wednesday nights. Okay, I teach Wednesday nights. But,
she does.
With that, and I think that's what I love about the churches that we go to. It's relatable.
Yeah,
you're able to put it to your daily life. Where I feel like growing up, none of it. I mean, I just learned who Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were. Like, I just swear to God, I just learned that 6 months ago. I was like, wait, what? Like, I literally grew up in the church. And like, there's those moments where when you can relate to it, it hits differently, right? So like, you want to go back. You want to hear stories. You want,
because you're excited because you're like, that fired me up for what I'm about to do in my week.
Yeah.
Whether it's work or your relationship. It's like, that made me feel good because I know I have something else in my toolbox now.
Yeah. And the pastor's talking about their lives and like showing that they're not perfect either.
Yeah.
You know, like how you said with Pastor Lee and another church that we've gone to too. Like when he's talking, like nothing else I think about except listening to his stories. And I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, how different a year ago I didn't go to church, you know?
That's the thing too, is being a trainer with a lot of people that are not believers. I train a lot of people. Probably they look at me like I'm a unicorn. Like, Ryan, the things you do, you have Bible study on Wednesday, you go to church on Sunday. Like, I sound like I'm ridiculous. And they probably think I'm really cheesy. No, they don't. But and originally when they meet me, they probably are like, this guy is like, he is a square.
Unicorn.
Loves Jesus.
Yeah. But honestly, I never grew up in the church. I didn't read the Bible until probably about 5 years ago. And I had no idea what I was doing. And so someone's probably thinking like, they're listening to the podcast and they're like, yeah, that's great. You guys have this relationship with God, but I don't know where to start. And that's the thing too, is when you walk in the gym, it's so intimidating. You don't know where to start.
So scary. I would never go to the free weight section until now. Now I'm like, give me those weights.
Give me the weight.
Yeah.
But you have to start with the basics. The basics is find somebody who can help you read God's word, reading it, because it's the foundation. Once you have the foundation, then you can add in the supplementary things, the accessory work, right, in your faith walk. It's just like in the gym. You don't start just grabbing all these bands and all these cables and all these. You start with the basics, and that's how you continue to grow.
Revert back to the basics.
You always go back to the basics.
The basics will never fail you. That's why it's funny on Instagram, me and my trainer talk about it. It's like, you see all these crazy exercises. Real trainers do the same things over and over and over and over again. Consistency. and you don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
You do deadlifts, you do squats, you do the foundational things.
Unless you're in a cool class, like.
Hey, there's some fun ones that we do.
Exactly.
Just so I meant to say this in the beginning to Ryan. We have to wrap up here soon. It goes by so fast.
Wow.
I know.
This literally went by so fast.
I know.
I thought we were going to be here like, I was like, man, how are we going to have this much content?
It's never enough time, but I feel like everyone I've had on, I'm going to just do a part 2 because there's just so much good stuff.
Part 2, we're coming back.
Hey,
we're coming back.
We made it.
We made it.
But Ryan, when I told my group I wanted to start a podcast, well, Samantha's been so freaking supportive. I don't want to leave you out because I mean, just you know, you've been so supportive. But Ryan,
reading each other's minds.
You're talking about your spiritual leaders and stuff. I consider you one of the leaders in my life and someone that I can look to, and I think part of that is because you are so honest. Like Ryan talks about when he's struggling, he talks about when he hasn't been as deep as he wants to be. But when I told you guys about the podcast, you said to me, you need to do this. You're passionate about Jesus. And someone like you saying that to me was very like, I'm going to get emotional. It really like sat with me, and I needed that encouragement. And it meant a lot that someone that I see that, really loves Jesus and is on fire for Jesus sees that in me. And so just another reminder to like speak life into people.
That's so good.
That's
wow. Feel really good.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank
it's
you.
what you guys get to do all the time, and just encouragement for you guys, but anybody else listening, like just never underestimate the power of your words, whether you're in the gym or wherever you're at. Like your words are important, negative or positive. People are going to remember them, and you don't know who needs to hear something to take that next step to do something for the kingdom, or, do this passion projects, things we have on our heart. Sometimes you just need that person in your life that you look up to and respect to tell you can do this and you're capable. So I appreciate you both so much.
Oh, this was fun.
This was fun.
Usually I ask about favorite song, but what's your guys' favorite exercise to do? Like lift or...
Wow.
I know mine is a deadlift. I'm a big deadlift gal.
You took mine.
Well, it can be yours too.
Okay. I would think deadlift.
I like any type of... my background is in conjugate style, so if anybody knows, the sports performance and so moving weight fast, and so any type of dynamic effort lift, I just love like when there's a chain on there and there's a band and you're just throwing it up
cardio
with your chest.
when you're doing it like that.
Wow.
Or is it a squat? So
right? Yeah, I love that.
If anybody wants to try that out, actually, I'm gonna have you come and I'll have to come try your class.
Yes, that I will try.
We can like record it for the next podcast.
I would love that. I'm always up to try new things.
Where can people find you guys? On social media in real life?
Do I want people to know? Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh no, mine is just my first and last name. Very simple. On Instagram,
I always
TikTok,
put it in the show notes too, so if people don't know how to spell Benavente, it'll be in there. It'll be in there.
Love it. Mine's a little bit longer. It's sj.thevegasplanner103, because I also own a wedding planning business as well. So, you got to do a little bit of both. But and then 103 Hot Pilates and Yoga. We're located over on Flamingo 215. Come check us out. I'm telling you. You'll be hooked.
If you say you came from the podcast, she'll let you come for a discount. I just made that up right now.
We will. No, yeah, we totally will.
As the
Don't
brand,
say that for me.
oh my gosh, that's the best. Ever since Molly was like, I'm the brand ambassador, and I'm like, totally. She's like, self-proclaimed. I'm like,
self-proclaimed.
No,
I don't get paid. I just love them.
The amount of support that you've given the gym, and I think I've told you this multiple times, and I mean, you're my family. My family likes you better than me, and they it's insane. Like, you don't find people like Molly in your life, right? Someone who just doesn't ask questions, supports, might not agree with things, but just has your back no matter what. And especially when I bought this, she was like, and then like,
look at
still did it though,
Signed up.
I signed up that month and drove from Green Valley.
And now I live right next door.
And you might still.
Yeah.
Because I'm moving and you might too.
I'll never be far from 103 now. I drive us a lot. But well, thank you guys.
We love you. Thank you. This is amazing.
Thank you all for listening again to the podcast. Remember to rate, review, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. It does help a lot to get this to reach people that may not have listened yet. You can follow us on Instagram at Where You're Planted Podcast. You can support on Patreon. That link is in the Instagram bio. And if you would like to sponsor an episode, just reach out on Instagram as well.
Yay.
See you next time.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you.